my family, if you truly understood the spiritual price you're paying every single time you give into that secret pleasure, would you still do it? What if I told you that it's not just a moment of weakness, not just a bad habit, but a spiritual transaction where demons walk away with something valuable, something sacred that belongs to you? You see, demons don't always come with flashing lights and loud noises. No, they come in silence and secrecy and in patterns we think are harmless. Yeah? They come when the room is dark, when your heart is heavy, when your guard is down, and they steal not your money, not your possessions, but your peace, your power, your purpose. And the worst part? Most people don't even realize it until they feel completely, until their fire for God fades, until they look in the mirror and wonder where their strength went. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to tell you the truth that many will avoid because it's uncomfortable. But truth is the only thing that sets us free. I know what it's like to struggle. I know how tempting it is to believe it's no big deal. But the spiritual world doesn't see it that way. The enemy doesn't treat it as a small slip-up. He treats it as an open door. And once that door is open, he doesn't knock. He walks in, sets up camp, and starts stealing. My family, this message is not to scare you. It's to wake you up, because you are not alone, but you are under attack. And the first step toward freedom is recognizing the trap for what it is. Let's walk this road together. The light is stronger than the darkness, but first we must open our eye. Spiritual reality check, the open door. My family, let's be honest, we've been trained to see things only on the surface. We've been taught that what we do in private doesn't matter as long as we keep it hidden. But the truth is, what happens in secret has the most spiritual weight. And masturbation, no matter how normal the world makes it seem, is not just a physical act. It's deeply spiritual. When you engage in this habit, you're not just releasing physical energy. You're giving away spiritual authority. You're opening a door that unclean spirits are waiting to enter. These spirits thrive in darkness, and they feed off secrecy, guilt, shame, and addiction. Every time you give in, they gain access. Not because they have the power, but because you unknowingly hand it to them. Demons don't need your permission in words. They just need a legal right, a doorway. And this habit, when it becomes repetitive and uncontrollable, gives them exactly that. You start to feel it. Your thoughts become cloudy. Your prayers feel empty. Your hunger for God fades. That's not coincidence. That's what spiritual warfare looks like when it's hidden behind a habit. Masturbation is often connected to lust, fantasy, pornography, and isolation, and these things don't exist in a vacuum. They are doorways. They are magnets for unclean spirits that aim to distract, drain, and destroy. What starts as a moment of pleasure turns into a pattern of bondage, and each time you fall into that pattern, it becomes harder to break free. Not because God won't help you, but because you've given the enemy a foothold. The devil is a legalist. He won't come where he's not allowed. But once you give him access, he will take more than you ever offered. And this is why so many people feel spiritually dry, emotionally exhausted, and mentally tormented, yet can't figure out why. My family, this is not just about self-control. This is about spiritual protection, about guarding your soul from silent enemies. It's time to see this battle for what it really is, and it's time to shut the door. Demons can't steal what they can't reach. So stop handing them the key. That's your spiritual authority. My family, one of the first things demons steal when you fall into this cycle is your spiritual authority, that power you once carried, the confidence to pray boldly, to speak life over your situation, to stand firm against the enemy. It begins to fade. Slowly, quietly it slips away. And what's left is a version of you that no longer walks in power, but in hesitation. You might still be reading the Bible, still showing up at church, still trying to stay strong, but inside, something feels weaker. That fire that once burned with passion now flickers. Your words in prayer begin to feel empty. You start doubting your own voice. Not because God left you, but because you've unknowingly allowed the enemy to rob you of your strength. Every time you give in to that moment of pleasure, it might seem harmless, but spiritually, it's like signing a contract that says, here, take a little more of my authority. It doesn't happen all at once. That's what makes it dangerous. It's a slow leak, one that leaves you wondering why you feel spiritually dry, why your worship feels numb, and why your prayers feels numb. And the enemy, he loves this, because as long as you feel powerless, you won't fight. As long as you feel ashamed, you'll stay silent. And as long as you feel distant from God, you won't walk in your calling. But let me remind you, God did not create you to walk in weakness. He called you to walk in authority, to cast out demons, not entertain them, to break chains, not wear them. Your authority can be restored, but first you must recognize what's been stolen and who took it. Your vision, your mental peace. My family, have you ever noticed what happens right after the act is over? That heavy silence, that sudden shift in how you feel about yourself. It's not just random emotion, that guilt, that anxiety, that shame. It's spiritual. It's strategic. Demons know exactly what they're doing. They don't just tempt you into the act. They torment you afterward. In those quiet moments, when the screen is off and the lights go dark, a voice starts whispering, "You're filthy. God doesn't want to hear from you. You'll never change." And sadly, many believe it. That's how demons steal your mental peace. Not just by pushing you into sin, but by making you believe you're stuck in it. They don't need to change your body, they change your mind. They want you anxious, replaying the failure over and over again. They want you burdened by thoughts like, "I've done it again," or "God must be tired of me." That cycle of regret is their trap. It makes you too tired to pray, too ashamed to open your Bible, too numb to feel God's presence, and before you know it, you're not chasing God, you're avoiding Him. You begin to isolate. You start hiding, not just from others, but from yourself. Your confidence fades, your joy shrinks, and your clarity becomes foggy. It feels like you're drowning in thoughts that never stop. That's not just mental exhaustion, that's spiritual warfare. But my family, you were not created to live like this. Christ came to give us peace, real peace, not just in heaven, but here and now. You don't have to live in guilt. You don't have to carry that shame. But to take back your peace, you have to shut the door to the voices that are trying to steal it. Your destiny and discipline. My family, you were created with a divine purpose, a calling that only you can fulfill. But here's what the enemy knows. He doesn't have to destroy you outright. All he has to do is distract you long enough for you to destroy your own potential. And one of his favorite tools for that? Lust. When you fall into the cycle of masturbation, you don't just lose a moment, you lose momentum. That sacred energy meant to build your vision, fuel your dreams, and drive your purpose gets stolen. It's like pouring water into a bucket with holes. You keep trying to move forward, but something keeps draining your drive. That something is not just a lack of motivation, it's a spiritual attack on your discipline. You wake up tired, you keep putting off what you know you should be doing. You make promises to yourself, like tomorrow I'll start, but tomorrow keeps running away. That's not just procrastination, that's purpose being delayed. You start losing your edge, your focus, your hunger, and while you may still talk about your goals, you're not moving toward them. That's exactly what demons want. Exactly what demons want. Because if they can steal your discipline, they can block your destiny. They don't need to take your gifts, just your drive to use them. They don't need to silence your voice, just your desire to. And little by little, your life starts to look like survival instead of purpose. But my family, the good news is this. The moment you decide to close that door, heaven backs you up. The power to reclaim your focus, your fire, your discipline, it's already inside you. But you have to stop feeding the thing that's been draining your future, your relationships and purity. My family, one of the most dangerous things demons steal when you fall into the habit of masturbation is your purity, not just in action, but in perception. Over time, they begin twisting the way you see people, even the way you define love. What used to be a pure connection, rooted in respect and real emotion, becomes clouded by lust and unrealistic fantasy. You stop seeing others for who they truly are and start viewing them through a distorted lens. That friend, that stranger, that innocent glance, suddenly your mind turns everything into a sexualized version of reality. It becomes harder to look at someone without your imagination wandering. That's not harmless. That's collection, and it affects more than your thoughts. It starts damaging your ability to connect in real relationships. Real intimacy starts to feel distant. You crave closeness, but avoid it at the same time. You want love, but sabotage it because deep down, you've been rewired to chase pleasure, not connection. And eventually, you begin pushing people away emotionally, spiritually, even physically. You may still smile, you may still say you want love, marriage, or deep friendship, but inside there's a wall built by fantasy, shame, fear, and guilt. And that wall gets higher every time you feed the habit. Demons know that if they can corrupt your purity, they can destroy your relationships, friendships, romantic bonds, even family ties. Because a twisted view of others leads to mistrust, isolation, distance. And my family, God created relationships to be sacred, to be healing, and the enemy knows this. That's why he attacks this area so hard, but restoration is real. Purity is possible. You just have to stop letting the enemy write the story of how you love your connection with God. My family, perhaps the most dangerous thing demons steal when you give in to the temptation of masturbation is the very connection that holds your soul together, your relationship with God. This is not just about guilt or shame. It's about the enemy's mission to isolate you from your Heavenly Father. Have you ever felt too dirty to pray, too ashamed to worship? Suddenly, your spirit feels heavy, like there's a thick wall between you and God. That feeling, that silence in your heart, that's not just your imagination. It's the work of the enemy. Their goal is simple, to make you believe that because you've fallen, God doesn't want to hear from you, that you're too broken to be loved by Him. The worst part, it's not even true. God's love for you is unshakable, unbreakable, and never ending. But demons, knowing this, want to trick you into feeling too distant, too filthy, and too unworthy to approach his throne. They want to keep you silent in your shame, paralyzed by the thought that God is disappointed in you. When this happens, the enemy has won the biggest battle. Why? Because once he separates you from God, he isolates you from the source of your strength. Without connection, there's no power. Without intimacy with the Father, there's no clarity or peace. And when you begin to feel like you've drifted too far to come back, you stop seeking God altogether. But my family, God's love doesn't work like that. No matter how far you think you've fallen, no matter how many times you've stumbled, his arms are always open wide. The silence you feel, it's a lie. The distance, it's a lie. You can always come home. Freedom is possible. The fight is worth it. My family, the fight against this stronghold may feel overwhelming at times, but I want to remind you of something crucial. Freedom is possible. You are not bound forever. The enemy would like you to believe that you're trapped, that this cycle is unbreakable, but that's a lie. You were not created to be a slave to sin. You were created to walk in the freedom of God's grace. I know how it feels when you've struggled for so long, when it feels like the pattern is so deeply ingrained that there's no way out. The shame can be suffocating. The guilt can weigh you down, making you question whether you'll ever break free. But here's the truth. God sees the struggle. He knows exactly where you are, and he's not condemning you for it. His grace is still stronger than any temptation, any lie, or any feeling of inadequacy. The key to freedom, though, doesn't lie in simply trying harder or making promises you can't keep on your own. No, it's in resisting, but not through your strength, through him. The power to overcome is not found in willpower alone. It's found in surrender. When you say, God, I can't do this on my own, but I'm trusting you, that's when the breakthrough happens. That's when his strength. Resisting isn't about striving in your own effort. It's about relying on God's word and his Spirit to do what you cannot. In Ephesians 6, Paul talks about putting on the full armor of God. And part of that armor is the shield of faith. A faith that trusts God even when everything in you feels weak. When you let go of the need to fight on your own and instead rely on his power, you will find that the chains start to break. But there's another truth you must accept. You must decide to resist. Freedom doesn't just fall into your lap. You have to choose it. You have to make the decision every day to say no to what pulls you down and yes to God's will for your life. You're not doing it alone. God is with you, and his grace is always stronger than any stronghold. The fight is worth it. Every moment of resistance, every prayer, every time you choose purity over temptation, you are stepping closer to the freedom that Christ died to give you. Don't give up. It's not about perfection. It's about progress, and in him you will overcome. My family, I need you to hear me when I say this. Don't let shame win. If this message stirred something deep inside of you, if you felt that nudge, that pull on your heart, don't just grow past it. The enemy wants you to feel like you're alone, like you're the only one struggling with this. But that's a lie. We're in this together. This fight, it's not over. In fact, it's just beginning. If you're ready to step into the freedom God has promised, it starts with making a decision right now. Don't let another moment pass where you sit in silence, where you hide in shame. Stand up and declare that you are breaking free. Don't keep this to yourself. Let the enemy know you're no longer afraid to fight back. Drop a comment saying, I'm breaking free so we can stand with you, praying and believing for the breakthrough you've been waiting for. Let's build a community of warriors who support each other, who lift each other up when the battle gets tough. And while you're at it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This isn't just about subscribing to a channel. This is about subscribing to your breakthrough, subscribing to your victory, subscribing to a movement of people who are choosing God over everything else. We're not in this alone. We are building something powerful here. A family, a community where we can walk in freedom together. So my family, don't let shame or guilt keep you from the life you were meant to live. You are worthy. You are strong. And most importantly, you don't have to fight this alone. Let's keep pushing forward, one step at a time, and together we'll break free.